An entitled man proposes to his girlfriend at my stepbrother's wedding, shocking literally everybody involved and ruining the moment for my stepbrother and his wife. Things got so bad that the friend and his new fiance ended up getting kicked out of the wedding after they freaked out and started screaming at everyone. Here's what happened. So for a bit of backstory, my mom and dad split up when I was 12 years old, and I for one was happy that they were separated. They were not bad people, they just were not the right people for each other. My father still hasn't been remarried though, and he is dating someone right now. I don't really like her, but it's really my dad's decision. My mom started dating a year after the divorce. She met my now stepfather, and he had a son who I became quite close to, considering my biological brother went to live with my dad while I lived with my mom. So when my mom announced her wedding, we were all excited. So then my stepfather's son officially became my stepbrother. So my stepbrother and his girlfriend of 3 years were getting married. Now his girlfriend just so happened to be my best friend, so I was extremely excited for them. I was chosen to be the maid of honor, and my biological brother was the best man. We were all that close, and we were all really excited. Now my stepbrother's best friend was one of the groomsmen at the wedding, and I really did not like this guy because he was a total creep and always tried to hit on me when my stepbrother wasn't around. My stepbrother is quite protective, so I didn't tell him because otherwise he would have been arrested for hitting this guy. And also, I can stand up for myself, so I don't really need his help. Anyways, once this guy got a girlfriend, he stopped annoying me and it was really nice. So during the planning of the wedding, nothing crazy happened apart from the normal wedding stress. We invited almost everyone we knew and it was going to be great. Well, or so we thought. The big day arrives and everyone is ecstatic. The ceremony was beautiful and everything went great. Then the reception came around and it was going great at first. The groom and bride plus the bridesmaids and the groomsmen were all seated at the table in front of everyone at the venue while the guests were sitting in front of us. So everyone was facing our table. Everyone was giving speeches and enjoying the food. Then out of nowhere, the best friend from earlier who would always hit on me, he stood up and takes the mic and says he has something important to say. Now we are all confused as he had finished his speech, but we decided to let him talk. But I honestly wish we hadn't, as this guy did something that none of us expected. He asked his girlfriend to come up to the table and I already knew where this was going. He starts a speech on how much he loves her and how they're meant to be together. She's smiling, but I think she didn't want this to happen now of all times. He then kneels down and pulls a ring out of his pocket and asks her to marry him. She says yes, and they start running around showing people the ring, all while my best friend looked like she was going to cry. Finally, my mom gets up to remind everyone that this was her son's wedding and that we should stop talking about someone else's engagement. At that point, everyone was quiet. Suddenly, we hear this banshee scream. The girlfriend to my stepbrother's best friend started screaming, claiming that she had just ruined her special day by making that announcement. Then this jerk started screaming at us as well, claiming that he did nothing wrong. Eventually, and thankfully, they got kicked out. And my stepbrother lost his best friend that day, but he didn't really care because that idiot lost all of his friends as well. But it honestly blew all of our minds, and we seriously couldn't believe that they would do something that stupid at another person's wedding. The original poster actually has an update to what happens after this wedding fiasco, and apparently things get a lot worse afterwards. Here's what they had to say. So I posted about the events that occurred at my stepbrother's wedding, and a few people asked me to update it so that people could know what happened. So a few months after the wedding, my stepbrother announced that they are expecting a baby. Everyone was super excited and congratulated them. A bunch of friends came by our house and started thinking of baby names too. In fact, my biological brother invited his friend over as well. It was basically an early baby shower. All was going really well. That is until one of my stepbrother's friends posted this news on Facebook or something like that, basically just declaring the new baby was going to be born 9 months from now. And since this was posted online, it didn't take long for my stepbrother's former friend who proposed at his wedding to find out about this news. After some time, we heard the bell ring, so like any natural human being, my boyfriend went to open the door. As soon as he opened the door, my stepbrother's former friend pushed him and came barging in. When the jerk friend saw my stepbrother, he began screaming about how my stepbrother was a selfish jerk, and that now that his wife, who's my best friend, was expecting a baby, no one would come to his wedding. My stepbrother seemed surprisingly calm and told him to stop screaming and get out of the house. This seemed to offend this jerk friend even more, and what he said absolutely enraged me. He said to my stepbrother, "I can't believe you become like this after she came around. You've changed." Now, you might not pick up on this, but this guy was making a racial comment against me. As a note, I'm not white, but I am brown, as my biological father is an Indian, so that makes me a mix. This jerk friend has always found this disgusting, but he's still always tried to hit on me. This horrible and messed up behavior is the exact reason why I never tried to be friends with him. And when he pointed at me earlier, that's basically what he was implying, that I was the problem and that it was because of my skin color. My biological brother and stepbrother looked enraged. They are very protective of me since I'm the only sister they have. I'm not the youngest, as my biological brother's the youngest, but in their eyes, they're still my sister. My biological brother walks up to this jerk and says to him, "You do not have the right to come into my house and then make comments about the skin color of my sister. Leave now before I mess you up." This guy tries to scream again, but this time my stepbrother and his friends tell him to leave. I think the thought of him being beaten up by 10 guys who were way bigger than him scared him more than anything. He ran out into his car and then eventually drove off. Occasionally nowadays, ever since lockdown, we get angry text messages from him, and it's honestly so pointless to deal with this guy in the slightest. I have since blocked him ever since going back and forth, but he still sends these angry, crazy text messages to my mom and stepfather, as well as many of my ex-friends. So all in all, this guy is crazy, and I'm glad that he is out of my life. That guy really does sound crazy. First off, in what universe did this guy seriously think it was okay to suddenly just propose at their best friend's wedding? Like, are you trying to make enemies with people? Like, you cannot do that. The wedding is meant for the people getting married. It's not meant for you or anybody else to try and announce anything. I mean, seriously, that is honestly messed up. Can you imagine getting married and then someone else is like, "Guys, we're getting married as well. Let me steal your thunder real quick." Like, no, get out of here. Do that on your own time. My wedding is not the time for you to announce your wedding. The timing is just horrible. I mean, what were they thinking? And then when you look at the backlash of what happened after they basically started acting crazy, I mean, no wonder nobody wanted to be friends with them. Like, look at the way this jerk of a friend reacted when they found out that their former friend's wife was pregnant. They tried to claim that them having a baby is going to prevent other people from going to their stupid wedding. Like, what are you talking about? Those things don't correlate at all. So good for you for cutting this person out of your life. They are clearly a horrible person, and you and your family are going to be so much better off without this guy being involved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for making my brother-in-law pay for his son's meal after I said it was my treat? Here's what happened. So I don't see my sister or her family very often, so when I do, I tend to splurge on them. I am child-free for now and for the foreseeable future, but probably not forever. I took her family out for dinner, and I said that it was my treat. So it was my sister, her husband, his mom who lives with them, myself, and 3 kids, ages 15, 12, and 10 years old. I took them out to a steak place in their city that I always wanted to try. My 15-year-old nephew looks at the menu and says that he wants the tomahawk steak. I told him it was 3 pounds of meat plus 3 full sides, and he should probably pick something smaller. My brother-in-law says that his kid can eat it all and said it was my treat and that I'm trying to cheap him out. Also, mind you, it was $190 for the steak. I said fine, but if he doesn't eat it all, then you have to pay for it, which he agreed to. We ordered our food, and the waiter tells us the tomahawk is usually shared between several people since it comes with 3 shareable portions of sides as well. I asked my brother-in-law if he was sure. He looks at the kid and smiles and says, "No problem." We order, and when the food came out, the tomahawk and the sides literally took up half the table. The kid finished less than a quarter of the steak and only a little bit of the sides. When the bill came, I asked to pay for 7 meals, all the drinks, and all the tips. I also said the tomahawk steak was going to be on a separate bill for my brother-in-law. He agreed with ill grace. My sister said that he used the budget that they had earmarked to take the kids to see the new Spider-Man movie. I felt bad, but I think that he was an absolute jerk for trying to waste my money. He thinks that I'm a jerk for following through and making him pay for something that mostly went to waste. And yes, they took the leftovers home. So am I the jerk for making my brother-in-law pay for his son's meal? I don't think you're the jerk at all. That steak cost $190. I'm not sure what kind of restaurant you went to, but $190 for a steak? That is insane to me. That steak better be covered in gold if it's going to cost that much. And no, there's no way I would want to pay for that. That kid's not going to finish it. He's 15 years old. He's going to take a few bites and then have all this other food left over. I would absolutely make the brother-in-law pay for that. There's no way that's coming out of my pocket. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation. Your brother-in-law absolutely is for trying to make you pay for something that his son never even finished. Am I the jerk for yelling at my mother after she showed favorites towards my younger brothers and forces me to clean up after them and do everything for them? Here's what happened. I have 2 brothers, and for the sake of this post, I'll call them John and Terry. John and Terry are not their real names. My mom has always had a stronger liking towards both John and Terry. Ever since they were little, they could do no harm in her eyes. Since I was little, I would always get in trouble for everything John and Terry did. If they hurt each other, it was my fault. If they did something wrong, it was my fault as well. My mom always raised me as a caregiver. I had to basically take care of my little brothers, as I was the one cooking, cleaning, washing, and ironing their clothes, buying them stuff if they needed it, as well as helping them with their homework and many other things. However, due to me always doing everything for them, they have become the most useless human beings on the entire planet. They're almost adults now, and they still won't do their own laundry, they won't help with the cooking, they won't clean anything that they made a mess, and are just overall grubs, leaving their dirty tissues and clothes everywhere. Last night for me was the last straw when John spilt an entire entire bottle of orange juice on the floor, and my mom told me to clean it up. I immediately started yelling at her, saying she failed as a parent, and instead of raising her sons to pull their own weight in this house and teaching them basic life skills, she let everyone else do it for them and never taught them a thing. She instantly started laughing at me and said I was insane to think that's how life really was, and that she raised all of us equally. I then told her that I can't wait till she grows old and will end up relying on both of them because I won't be around to help her out with anything, and then she can see just how well she raised them. She told me that won't be happening because she doesn't want them taking care of her when she's older. I then stormed off to my room and cried for a good 10 minutes before packing a bag and driving to my boyfriend's house. When I told him what happened, he said he understands why I feel the way that I do, but that was quite harsh towards my mom, and I should apologize for lashing out at her like that. My friend also says that I'm the jerk and that I shouldn't speak to my mom like that. My mom has since left 2 voicemails demanding I come back home right now. I'm not going home until I've calmed down and when she's not as angry. So am I the jerk for talking to my mom this way, as well as being frustrated with my 2 younger brothers? So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your mom has clearly been playing favorites towards John and Terry, and it's obvious that she makes you do all this stuff when they could easily do it themselves. For context, John is 18 and Terry is 16, and the original poster of this story, she is literally 22 years old. Like, why is your mom making you clean up after your brothers when your brothers are literally almost adults, if not adults right now? Like, you should not be forced to clean up the orange juice that they spill on the ground, and they should absolutely be able to pull their weight by this point. And you want to know why your mom is making you come back to your house like that? It's because she has to now take care of her sons instead of trying to force you to do it. So I really do think there's some truth to what you're talking about, and you can bet her life is going to be a nightmare when you decide to step away and finally move out. And you know what? Your boyfriend just doesn't understand where you're coming from. I think at a base level, maybe like skin surface, he gets it, but honestly, he hasn't lived through this like you have. He didn't grow up feeling like he's in the backseat of this family as well as everybody else's personal servant. You, on the other hand, absolutely had to deal with that. And that, in my opinion, is completely unfair. So honestly, your mom needs to straighten up and start to raise her boys right. Because from the way I see it, she has enabled these kids to be absolutely useless, and that is not your fault in the slightest. I am finally coming to terms with the fact that my mother is definitely a narcissist, and she has been my entire life. Here's what happened. When I was in college and in my early 20s, I, like many others, grew and evolved into a different person than my parents. When I graduated college, I moved out of state. I would miss my parents a lot, but when they would come to visit me every once in a while, I would become so irritable and difficult with them. When they left, I'd feel so guilty about my attitude while they were with me. I couldn't understand it. Now that I'm older and wiser and have started therapy, I've had an epiphany. My mother is a narcissist. When I became an adult, she found it hard to respect me as an adult, and that's why I became so irritable every time she'd come to visit. My parents are very religious. They raised me to believe that we were better than everyone else because we had found the one true religion, and anyone who wasn't as devout as us was immature and not someone to waste my time with. As I got older, I became friends with people who grew up very differently than me. When my parents would come to visit, my mom would dismiss these friends or treat them very poorly. Now, I can see that she is very hypercritical of anyone who lives differently than her or holds a different opinion than her. My mom is also very entitled. It is either my mom's way or the highway. Having a baby, gotta have the shower that she wants. Want to have Christmas? Everyone is going to her church and doing the activities that she wants. And don't even think about visiting your in-laws for the holidays. She always gets first dibs. Giving birth? She will cry and beg the nurses to let her in the room, even though you told her you only wanted your spouse in the room, and after the fact, she'll tell you how selfish you are for blocking her from meeting her grandchild the moment he or she entered the world, which, by the way, is a true story. She lacks empathy, and especially to the above, it doesn't matter if you're tired, you've been working all day, you are going through a hard time, she doesn't want to hear any of it. You better show up where she wants and when she wants, and you better have a smile on your face with no complaints. Don't expect her to put herself in the shoes of others. She can only relate to things she's personally been through herself. Also, my mom is definitely going to make condescending remarks, and if you want to keep the peace, you best learn how to accept them and move on. Are you a little bit overweight? Did you not have time to do your hair? Trust me, she's gonna let you know. Ordering something at the restaurant that she thinks sounds gross? She will say so in front of the server. Setting a boundary of some kind? Well, she's gonna lash out with insults and attack your character. I've also noticed you can't expect her to be able to have an adult conversation or accept any kind of boundaries. The moment you try to have a conversation about anything real, she will tell you that it's no big deal and that I'm such a drama queen. And the list honestly goes on. From her never asking you one question about your life when you're together or speaking on the phone, but will then tell you every minute detail about hers and will expect you to remember it all. She will also both berate you behind closed doors, but then brag about you in Publix about your achievements on Facebook. She's only ever concerned about her appearance or her photo ops when you're together with her, and she's unconcerned with any real connection or making any memories. She'll treat you like a child even though you are a full-blown adult with a career, as well as a house, bills, taxes, and a child. I'm just so tired of feeling beaten down by this. I'm finally putting two and two together about my mom, and it has me feeling so discouraged and helpless. And now I'm not sure what to do. First off, I want to say I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that growing up. Your mom sounds awful, and she treated you like garbage for your entire life. And what you've described literally sounds like a narcissist. She hits all the markings of a horrible parent, as well as a horrible person. And I think you really need to understand that none of that is your fault. You've clearly moved on with your life, and you have a kid and a family of your own. And that lady has no sway over what you can or cannot do with your life. And in my opinion, that's a great epiphany to have, to recognize how awful your mother is, as well as making the decision to not be like her ever in your life. So hopefully you're able to move past this, because your mom sounds awful, but you, on the other hand, sound like you've got a good head on your shoulders, and hopefully one day you're able to find peace with this situation. My partner invited another man to my mom's birthday without asking me, and now this has caused a huge fight between the two of us, and I'm now not sure if our relationship is over or not. Here's what happened. So I'm a 24-year-old male, and my partner is 21, and we are usually on the same page in terms of morality, and often read stories online, bouncing our shared views on what's right and what's wrong. However, what she did recently has my head spinning at how spectacularly disrespectful and inconsiderate what she did was. We were out for my mom's birthday drinking at a nice pub on the outskirts of town. Things were going well. Then, out of nowhere, my girlfriend starts waving at some guy. He walks over and helps himself to a seat at the table. It was particularly busy that day and was hard enough to fit everyone at the table. And now, here's this random dude I don't know sitting in my uncle's seat. My girlfriend explained she knew him from work and was playing it off like it was happenstance that he was here at the same time as us. So I asked if he was just here on his own, and she said, no, I invited him here. I then asked if she thought it was appropriate to do that, and she defended herself by saying she felt left out and that I wasn't much company. Granted, I was a little bit hungover as I had been drinking with her the night before, so I might not have been the most present person in general, but she wasn't left out. I didn't leave her side once, and I tried to slowly integrate us into different conversations. So I asked her again, don't you think this is a little disrespectful to invite another man along to entertain you just because you're bored and without running it by me or my mom first? She didn't have anything to say, and I wasn't willing to listen at that point even if she did. Most of us had moved on to the next pub, so I left her there and went to join my family. Eventually, she showed up alone, and I assumed the other guy felt awkward and just left. I pulled her aside to a quiet corner, and I told her I didn't want her here and to call that guy and see if he's still around, since that's who she'd rather spend her time with. And then I went back to where my family was sitting, and I did that thinking it was all over now. But oh boy, I was wrong. She decided she hadn't quite finished making my mom's birthday all about her. She came back and planted herself in the middle of everyone and caused a scene, demanding we sort this out right now. I said I needed space and just wanted to enjoy the rest of the day with my family, but she simply couldn't drop it. So I apologized to my mother and I left. Shortly after, my girlfriend followed me home, continuing to ignore my request that I wanted to be left alone, and screamed at me for not hearing her side of things. I said to her, there is no your side. Why should I respect your point of view after the complete lack of respect or consideration that you've shown me and my family and are still refusing to show me, seeing as I asked to be left alone? Eventually, she got her things and left, and we have not spoken since. I don't know where to go from here. We were talking about moving in together, but now I don't know if I want to, or if that even is going to happen. What should I do? Honestly, I might be on the fringe here, but I think both of you need to apologize to each other. For starters, you really did embarrass her in front of all of your family. You pulled her aside and singled her out and said, wow, why don't you go be with this guy you brought along instead of being with me? Like, you could have done that privately, but it sounds like you really did that in front of everybody, and that was incredibly disrespectful. But that also doesn't excuse what she did next. She literally sat in front of everybody and said, okay, we need to sort this out. Chances are nobody else really cared that she brought another guy from work with her to this party, but it's the fact that she did that in front of everybody and then dragged everybody in your family into her drama really was disrespectful. I personally feel like you also really should have listened to her side of things and tried to hear her out in some kind of way. I'm not excusing the behavior, trust me when I say that. I think what she did is absolutely stupid, and she should have told you ahead of time that she was bringing a friend from work, but her reaction overall to things was incredibly disrespectful, and I don't think the original poster is off the hook either. Overall though, I think your girlfriend is the bigger jerk in this situation, and while I think you could have handled this a little bit better overall, her reaction and the fact that she did this far outweighs anything that you did. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, use the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out in the description below and subscribe.